The second part of this chapter is pretty short and easy as well. So this is just talking about the three types of learned behavior. Remember, there might be an exam question which it'll ask, is this a learned behavior or an innate behavior? But so here we're seeing classical conditioning. Remember here, this is when two events are linked to each other by the animal. Then in the operant conditioning, this is with negative or positive reinforcement that then teaches the animal to do a certain action. And then observational learning. So learning requires experience. Innate learning is more about genetics, but so learned behavior is more about genetics, but also experience. And so we're seeing here different types of examples of learned behavior by animals, tool use, communication. Many great apes can also use sign language. And here's an example of this gray parrot that was able to learn a lot of these words, and he could actually put the letters together in the numbers. But so genes and environments interact to determine behavior. So it's not just genes, it's not just learning, but also interaction with the environment helps learning. So innate behavior patterns as well. It's not just genetics that they depend on, but without interaction, animals in labs are not able to display the behaviors that wild animals are able to display in the wild. And so what this is talking about, if we remember that word, proximate cause means that how a behavior is done. And so is it based on genetics, learning, experience is what learning really refers to, and also interaction. And so all three of these are part of the proximate cause, interaction with environment. Yeah, so here's an example of how interaction with the environment is so important to develop behaviors. So this bird, the sparrow, in the wild, the male sparrow hears other male birds and then imitates the songs. Now it does take a year to produce full and correct song, but what they saw was if you keep the bird in isolation in a lab with no birds around, then the song is abnormal. It doesn't sound like the other birds. And so experience with the environment helps develop the correct behaviors. Okay, so then next is going to talk about the ultimate causes for behavior. And so we're going to look at why is what ultimate meant. And so we're looking at why. We're looking to see if the behavior is increasing the survival chances and if the behavior is increasing reproduction, mating. And so here, the behaviors that improve survival, again, this is ultimate. Camouflage is a great example. This is also based on genetics, but the animal knows it could be an innate behavior to hide in the background that matches its color. Here's another one. It can look like a predator to scare the other animals, or it can have chemical defense, such as poisons, or physical defense, for example, claws. Okay, so the last one was about survival, and here it's talking about how behaviors improve reproduction. Courtship behaviors, especially the rituals that animals do. It's to ensure, for one thing, mating with the correct species, because different species have their own courtship behavior. It's also important for physiological hormonal states. So if the female is, for example, in the correct time period. So then the courtship behavior would be displayed then. Okay, so here are some examples courtship behavior. We're seeing here it's got like a dance to attract the female. Usually the males do the dance, and then this one, the male bird here looks beautiful and is trying to attract the female bird. And so these behaviors that improve reproduction usually leads to sexual selection in animals. And so sexual selection is basically how you can obtain mates. So is it through physical appearance? Is the male more beautiful or stronger looking, or is the female more beautiful? So what we end up seeing is sexual dimorphism. So definitely note this one. Sexual dimorphism means difference between the sexes and physical characteristics in order to attract mates. Two types of sexual selection. So these will be on the exam. Know the difference between intrasexual and intersexual. So with the intrasexual, males compete for access to females, and usually fighting occurs between the males in order to get the females to mate with them. But in the intersexual selection, here the female chooses among the males. So the female here instead is choosing the best looking one. But in the first one, it's the male that survives the fight, gets to mate with the females. Animals also differ in mating systems. So some species practice polygamy. Polygamy is when you have multiple partners. If males have multiple partners, it's called polygyny. And if females have multiple partners, this is called polyandry. So yeah, know the difference between these two as well, polygyny or polyandry. And monogamy is if you only have one partner for life. Natural selection is coming into play with behaviors, since behaviors improve chance of survival and reproduction, which is what natural selection is. And so what we know is what we see from observations. Human males, for example, are taller, heavier, more muscular than females, so that's sexual dimorphism. Well, also, male-to-male competition in humans may have been more intense in the past, and that's what may have led to such a difference in the sexual dimorphism. And we do see polygyny observed with human males as well. Living in a society can be considered a behavior. Group living has costs and benefits. On the exam, be able to give an example of benefits of living in a society, and then be able to give an example of a cost, meaning detrimental effect of living in a society. So the benefits, you could say any one of these on the test. You could write any one of these. Share information on food, cooperate in prey capture, protection, so protecting each other since you're together in a group. But then there are also these costs. So more likely to be detected by predators. It's not good. Competing with each other. You're going to compete for the food, for the space, for mates, spread of diseases between members of society. So these are the different costs. Okay. Acts of cooperation. So in a society, need to know the difference between these. Altruistic behavior just means when animals help each other, so for the good of others. Direct fitness, put a star by this one. Direct fitness means caring for yourself and for your children, for your offspring. Indirect fitness, you're still caring for others, but here, this is for relatives. So it's not just you and your children anymore, but you're also taking care of your aunts, your uncles, cousins, grandparents. Inclusive fitness is together, which is what is usually seen anyway in social groups. And the kin selection, individual is reducing its own direct fitness, so it could put itself in danger, putting itself in danger, but during that, it helps to warn other animals, warn the relatives or the group members of danger coming in, for example. Eusocial animals. These animals have the highest level of social behavior, so meaning that they're cooperating with each other, they care for each other, they care for each other's young. And the honeybee colony is a great example of a eusocial group. So here, the queen does nothing but lay eggs. The daughters never reproduce, but instead they're gathering nectar, pollen. Males go off and search for queens in other colonies, and females develop from the fertilized eggs. But so in this colony, um, the females are working together to take care of the colony.